Hi friends, this is Angelica. Welcome back to my channel. I have another Christmas ornament idea to share with you today. I am going to be getting back into paper crafts this week. I have a few projects I have to get done for a couple companies and also for my daughter's classroom. But for now, I'm still working on some Christmas ornaments, and I thought I would share how I put these ornaments together. I'm going to be working with frame ornaments. I picked these up at Hobby Lobby. They are back in the kids crafts, Christmas crafts area. They're marked $4.99. They are 50% off, and I thought that was a very reasonable price to make 6 ornaments with. So I'm opening up the bags. I'm taking out the little window part of the ornaments, and I'm going to get these painted. Now, I decided to just skip over sanding. I usually would sand them first, but they have a pretty smooth surface, so I'm going to go right into painting. I also picked up these paint brushes from Hobby Lobby. They were $3.50, I think, for the set. These are the brushes I always use in my DIY projects. And I'm also going to be using DIY products in this video also. So I'm starting with Bohemian Blue chalk paint, and I'm making sure that I'm painting all over the back and getting the inside of the frame painted also. And this is such an opaque paint. I mean, it is so pigmented, so like my fingers get stained from the paint. The silicone mat I'm working on to keep the rest of my craft area safe. That got totally stained. So this is a really pigmented paint, but it is such a beautiful, like, I don't know, it's just a beautiful dark blue, like a midnight blue almost tone. And I just think it's such a unique color to put on your Christmas tree. Now, since this paint is so opaque, I only have to do 1 layer on all of the frames. So I have a second frame on screen. I'm going to finish up the back. I'm going to set all the frames aside and move on to getting the what's going to go inside of the frame, that circle. I'm going to get that painted. Now I've already painted the back of it with the Bohemian Blue, and now I'm going to use White Swan to color the front white. I want the front to be white because I'm going to be doing some decoupage, and the white is going to make what the seams that I'm going to be putting on this circle pop a lot more than if I just kept it wood color. This is not a necessary step, but I do, if you want your image to be really bright, if it's going to be kind of a see-through image, like I'll be using rice paper. If you're using rice paper or decoupage paper, napkins, I definitely recommend painting that background white. Now I'm going to go through my rice paper and find the images that I want to use. I do have a circle die, which is the same size as the circle for the frame, so I can make sure I'm picking out images that will fit the frame. I've been collecting rice paper for a few years now, especially Christmas scenes. I do have some like flowers or birds, throughout to use throughout the year, but I mainly keep my collection Christmas images. So I buy my rice paper off of Etsy. When I need to go on Etsy and get some product, I will shop in stores that also sell decoupage paper so I can pick up a couple sheets while I'm doing my shopping. They're priced around $3 to $4 a sheet, but you see all the images you get off of one sheet. So I'm able to stretch my papers out really long and do multiple projects with one paper. I have these 2 images picked out for these circles. In fact, these images are going to be the ones that I'm going to use throughout this video, for the rest of this video. I did die cut them also. You don't need to die cut them. You can just cut around the circle with your scissors, or, just kind of trace what your frame is going to be and use scissors. But I had the die out, so I just ran these through my die cut machine, and I added a thin layer of Mod Podge to the circles, and then put the paper on top. I made sure that the bird was centered, and then I added a second layer of Mod Podge to pretty much seal them. I think these birds are so charming on their own. I am going to keep this bird that I am covering with Mod Podge right now alone, and I'm going to show a crackle on the other red bird. I'm going to be using Pentart Classic Crackle Varnish. This is a two-part crackle. Now, Pentart I've only been able to find on Etsy and on a couple DIY home decor online boutiques. This is an Eastern European company, so I doubt they have an American distributor for big craft stores. I'll leave a link to an Etsy shop that I do purchase these from. So if you want to go and take a closer look at this specific crackle, and they have tons of other products in the Pentart line too. So I'll just leave a link to a shop if you want to go get some more information on this company. The first layer that I put on goes, it looks milky when you first brush it on, like Mod Podge does, and it takes about an hour to dry if you just put it aside to dry. I use my blow dryer to kind of speed up the process, like on medium heat. So I use my blow dryer to dry the first layer, and then I added the second layer, and the second layer is really clear and shiny, and it doesn't take long at all for that layer to dry. Now I also used my blow dryer to dry the second layer, and what happens once it's dry is it cracks. It has these really fine cracks, but it's hard to see when you're just looking at it. So I'm going to be I'm going to brush some pigment powder over the cracks, and I'm going to be using Decrepit Dust by DIY. If this is something that you have on hand, this is perfect for this project. If you don't have it on hand, I've seen people use eyeshadows from old palettes, also watered down brown paint. They've brushed over the cracks and then wiped the top away. So I'm using a flat watercolor brush just to add the dust all over the image and making sure that those cracked lines are really showing through. And once I am done and I like the results, I'm going to just wipe the top of that really lightly with a baby wipe just to kind of get that top layer of dust off. And now I have a really pretty crackle that the brown has shown, where you couldn't really see it before. Now you can really see the crackle. It did change the image a little bit. It also aged the image. You know, you can see it's kind of a brown image now, but I'm totally fine with that. The last step that I'm going to do to these images is I'm going to add a top coat. I am using a glossy Mod Podge. I just thought a little bit of shine on the images inside the frame is going to look really nice, even though I'm not a really shiny person, but that finish for these ornaments actually looks really nice. So I'm going to add a quick coat of the Mod Podge, set those aside to dry, and I'm going to get back to the frames. Since I put a crackle on the images, I decided to do a faux crackle on the frames, and I'm going to use IOD's Vintage Textures stamp set to do this. I love using this stamp set. I love to make my projects look vintage or grungy, and this it's just a fun way to add a little bit more texture to your project. So I picked the larger crackle to use, and I'm gonna stamp the wood frames with paint. So I put a drop of Cascade paint onto a craft mat, rolled it out with my roller, and that's how I'm going to apply the paint to the stamp. For the frame, I'm just going to gently put the frame onto the stamp, tap it, and then lift it straight up. Now, if you don't have this Vintage Textures stamp set and you do want to add some texture to your frames, you can use whatever stamps are in your collection. If you have a really fun background stamp, red rubber would be fantastic to use. Or if you're not a stamp collector, you can just splatter some paint onto the frame. And you only have to do that if you just want to bring a little bit more color to your frame. But if you do splatter some paint onto your frame and you don't like it, or you don't like the stamped image, you can just repaint the frame and move on. So it's not like a done deal, not until you seal it, which is what I'm doing here. I'm sealing it with DIY's Big Top coat. Now, I am using a brush, a pretty cheap brush doing it, so it did leave some brush strokes. I don't mind that at all. The top coat also leaves not a really shiny finish, but it's in between a shine and a satin. So, and it did darken this paint up just slightly after the varnish was dry. At the beginning of making these ornaments, I did paint the circles with the Bohemian blue for the back of the ornaments. That was not a step that was necessary because I ended up getting the white swan all over the back of the circles. So once I got the circle popped back into the frame and closed the frame up, I just repainted the circles with the Bohemian blue to cover up the white paint. And once that was dry, I finished the top coat on the back. The last step that I need to do is get some ribbon on these ornaments. I did throw the twine that came with the frames away. So I'm going to exchange the twine with red velvet ribbon. I'm using 3/8 inch ribbon. This is a 30-yard roll that I got off of Amazon. Now, last Christmas, when I tried to look for red velvet ribbon, there was none at any store, especially, well, there was some that was wider, but I needed a small ribbon, a 3/8 inch ribbon. So I have bought my ribbon early this year. I just got this off of Amazon a couple days ago. I'll leave a link to that roll down in the description. And all of the links that I'm going to be sharing today in this video, I am not an affiliate to any of these links. These are just products that I love to use, especially in my mixed media. The paints, I absolutely love them. So I just want to let you know that this is not sponsored in any way, and I'm not representing a specific store. The hoops that are on the top of these frames that hold the ribbon, they're pretty small. So for me to be able to thread the ribbon through those little holes, I added some tape to the end of the ribbon and then cut the tape at an angle, and that made it really easy to thread the ribbon through. And then I tied a knot at the end, trimmed the edges, and then I singed the edges really quickly with a lighter. I did make 12 ornaments in this sitting. I did it during a school day while my daughter was at school, so it probably took 5 hours at the most to do all of them. I'm going to show you a few here. Now, these were all picked from different papers. I will have the papers over on my blog, and that link also will be down in the description. So if there's any papers here that you like, I will have that paper information over on my blog. I also did I did 2 red frames. Before I painted all of them blue, I thought, you know what, let's do a different color. So I picked red, and it turned out really vibrant, but I gotta say, this blue is just so pretty. I love it. So that is going to finish today's video. I do have a few final pictures to share. I don't have a Christmas tree set up in my house yet, though I have a feeling I'm going to go and buy a second tree for the basement soon. And then I can start taking pictures of these ornaments on the tree. I just can't wait to see what they look like on my tree. I can't wait to gift them. They're just absolutely charming in person. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me. If you are new, be sure to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss out on future videos. I am going to be back with more crafts, so I will see you then. Bye.